south for the news. 103.9 Livewire Weather Center. Count on.
In Irwin, it's clear and 35. In Greenville, it's clear and 35. In Johnson City, it's clear and 37. Good.
Tri-City Sports Now. If Virginia Tech was in a bowl game, again, it's the Who Cares Bowl. And there are at least 30 of these. And normally, local team, Virginia Tech, you'd like to see. They're playing Oklahoma State, high scoring. I thought it was one of the better matchups of the Who Cares Bowl season. But as I said at the start of the show, I'm actually of the opinion these days that all these bowl games take away what we should be talking about right now, which is who's going to win the national championship. For the local sports fan, we've got to consider Virginia Tech and Oklahoma, and we're missing that, to be honest with you, a lot of this Tri-Cities area is closer to Clemson than they are Blacksburg, Virginia, which is what, 130 miles north of the Bristol border? But anyway, Virginia Tech, we do get, they are the team of Southwest Virginia. And to be honest with you, I've sometimes wondered if they are not the team of the area, in that they may be the program with the brighter future ahead. Hey, I think that they are the program of prestige in their ACC division, even with Miami in the conference. Hey, Miami, they didn't play for their first ACC title until this year, after more than a decade after joining the conference. Virginia Tech, Virginia produces more football players than most states and more than Tennessee. Virginia, how many in-state players do they figure to pick off from Virginia Tech? You could see kind of a Tennessee-Vanderbilt relationship almost there. Although I do think that the quote-unquote smart schools are improving in the college football world. Let's look at Northwestern. No, let's look at Stanford and what they've been doing, let alone this year notwithstanding, Baylor, certainly with RG3 and company. So those teams that used to always lose and they say they can't win, even Duke is competitive. Heck, they had a winning season this year. They're now, and I think a lot of it is, well, I think two things. One is TV money. It's providing their budgets with more than ever before. And number two is the fact that I truly believe the intelligence has got to be a tremendous factor in winning football games. And so wouldn't the smartest team on the field have a tremendous advantage against another team? I've always felt that way. I know that Woody Woodenhofer was on this program, and he said, yeah, that's all well and good, but if a guy lining up against you is bigger and stronger, you've got quite a challenge. You better get real smart real fast. Anyway, Oklahoma State did defeat Virginia Tech by 9 points in a game that will be largely forgotten quite quickly. Here are a couple of highlights. This is a touchdown catch, the high-octane Oklahoma State offense. Dylan Stoner with a 17-yard reception against the Gobblers. Anybody ever call them that anymore? That gave Oklahoma State a 2-touchdown advantage.
Catch is made in the end zone. Did he catch it? He did! Pistols firing! Touchdown, Oklahoma State! Dylan Stoner with the sliding TD grab.
Here's another call from that football game, Oklahoma State. This was one that, again, gave them a 2-touchdown advantage, or 13 points, later on in the ball game.
The ball back to pass, steps up, throws it deep down the far side for Washington, makes a catch, 25-20, breaks a tackle, he's going into the record books and into the end zone. Pistols firing, touchdown Oklahoma State for Oklahoma State's all-time career receiving yards leader, James Washington.
all-time receiving leader at a place that had, everyone from, the high-octane offense of today to Hartley Dykes of yesterday. But I would point out here that, again, it's a who cares bowl. I actually thought that Virginia Tech, although I know that the idea is their stock is up from the end of the Frank Beamer era, and it probably is. Certainly they had a nice year playing for the ACC championship in 2016, but I just have to scratch my chin a little and say to myself, okay, is this program right now, was this really that good of a year for Virginia Tech? I guess when you lose your quarterback and you're at an Isaiah Ford and so many departures for Virginia Tech, it was not considered that it was going to be a real season of prestige in which Virginia Tech would probably play for the ACC championship. No, that probably wasn't in the cards. But still, I almost thought that it was a disappointing type of season. The big highlight for me of the year would have been the goal line stand against Pitt, which actually prevented the Panthers from going to 10 straight bowl games. But other than that, loss in a bowl game that otherwise is forgettable, kind of a forgettable season for Virginia Tech. On the other hand, locally, I'm not sure that their stock isn't higher than Tennessee's going forward. Again, Virginia produces more football players. They are, it seems to me, the cock of the walk in their own division in the ACC, whereas Tennessee, at best, is behind Georgia and Florida, and maybe even Missouri and South Carolina. It's been 10 years since they've won the division. Missouri and South Carolina have won it since then, and really, outside of, tradition, pageantry, which South Carolina does have its share of, what do you give South Carolina and Missouri? What don't they have that Tennessee has? Nosebleed seats? Irrelevant. More players in South Carolina. They got to fight with Clemson for them. I'll give you that. Missouri, they don't have to fight for anybody in state. Tennessee doesn't really, but they do have pesky little MTSU and Vandy and Memphis picking off some depth, let's say, in state. And that's a factor that maybe Missouri doesn't have to deal with. Otherwise, basically Missouri, 26 players in the NFL this year. Tennessee, state of, not the Volunteers, 33. Something to think about. Speaking of Tennessee and going forward and all this, a lot of people were talking about Lane Kiffin. Should he return as the Tennessee football coach? That was never going to be in the cards, and to tell you the truth, that was an insular vision from a fan base that tends to be insular. But a question here. After a 10-3 season at Florida Atlantic, should Lane Kiffin, a year off offensive coordinator for the Alabama Crimson Tide, the Tide losing the national championship game when they don't have Kiffin calling the shots, but winning the playoff game when they do, and having a number one ranking when he is on board, winning the national championship in 2015, should a top 5 program looking at the incredible resurrection of the Owls under Kiffin be thinking, let's get him, still young, still a, if you'll pardon the expression, sexy coach, still somebody who has some football, still making national media. He's doing interviews on Dan Patrick, for crying out loud. He's the coach at Florida Atlantic. Howard Schnellenberger didn't even do that. So was Kiffin, let's wait and see, in the college coaching search? In a word, absolutely he was. That's the question that Adam Gorney of Rivals.com asks, and I invite everybody, but I thought this was a very interesting piece. Now, Kiffin, what a year makes. I know that that's a cliche, but, here was a guy, it seemed like, when he did go to Florida Atlantic, how could you get fired from Alabama? You seem to get leaving jobs, Oakland, Southern California. What's your argument for Tennessee? You left on your own, but put him on probation? The reputation of Lacey Earps is now in question? What did you do here? some interesting ideas here. Was Kiffin overlooked in the season's coaching carousel? Well, of course he was. 12 Power 5 programs, 12 of them changed coaches this offseason. And the only time you ever heard Kiffin was Tennessee fans saying, maybe we should invite him back here. Mike Farrell, and he's the recruiting director, pretty well known at Rivals.com, says basically what I think about this. It's a little too early. He's had success with the Owls, but that's a different level of football. And when he's been on the biggest stage, he's struggled. Well, has he? I mean, Alabama won a national championship. Southern California, even with a few scholarship restrictions of their own, they did post a winning record under Kiffin. Maybe they wanted more riches, and for that matter, he took Tennessee from 5-7 to 7-6. A bowl game loss to Virginia Tech, which is one of the major reasons why I ask fans around here, could Virginia Tech now be a more prestigious program than Tennessee? Sad but true for the volunteer faithful. Lots of drama involved with them. Yeah, but sometimes drama is healthy. I think Mike Leach, for instance, quotable, gives you attention at programs that otherwise wouldn't get attention. Texas Tech and Washington State. Could you be more blah in the Big Five conferences than Texas Tech and Washington State? I know Washington State used to produce some pretty good quarterbacks, but yeah, you figure that is going to be resurrected under Leach and nobody else really. It's going to be a confident AD that's willing to take that on. Signed a 10-year deal with Florida Atlantic, but he's not making $1 million in any of those years. What does it mean? It's a nice thing for Florida Atlantic. It does keep him on board. It's good job security for Kiffin. What it also does, I think, is it makes the statement that I talk about, and I think this killed Carl Torbush at ETSU, in that you have to have at least 4 years in college football recruiting on your contract in the future to assure recruits, yeah, I'll be here. Florida Atlantic, they're not paying them a lot of money, but with that length of contract, okay, then you can say, will I be here at Florida Atlantic? I just signed a 10-year contract. I'm not planning on going anywhere. And you know what? You read around, people don't think that I've got a good shot at going somewhere else. So I thought I'd be here in the sun for 10 years. Why don't you join me for 4 or 5 of them? It's a powerful statement that contract makes. And in a less than stellar conference, Conference USA, where one could go from 3 victories to 10 victories in a single season, where Alabama Birmingham could debut their program with an 8-4 record, where 3 teams went with 1 or fewer victories this season. It's not the Conference USA that it used to be. The Conference USA before the development of the American Athletic Conference, to be honest with you. Well, maybe that it's going to take more time for Kiffin to really be considered for another big boy job. I don't put it past him. He's still young, he's still brash, and that's a good thing. And above all, he's winning. But yeah, maybe you want to say, okay, let's see another example here at FAU. Let's see what you do there for 2 or 3 years before I bring you to a major program. But I will say this, don't bet against Lane Kiffin getting another job somewhere else. Yeah, he's got some, Al Davis didn't. How do you disrupt Al Davis? Al Davis is the biggest maverick in football history. And somehow Kiffin was too big of a maverick for him. But you know what? I think a lot of people are going to have their fill of Nick Saban when it's all said and done. And that's not going to get held against him. I think that winning record at Southern California will eventually look good. And maybe even a little of, what were they thinking? Hey, they didn't replace him with Pete Carroll. And for that matter also, Tennessee was 5-7 before him. Tennessee was 5-7 after him. But you know what? They were 7-6 with him. And really, outside of a couple of 9-4s with Butch Jones, what's Tennessee done that's been any better than that in the past decade than the season they had with Lane Kiffin? And a lot of people are going to be looking at that if he continues to win with the Owls in the future. That's something you can bet the family heirloom on. Hey, could Josh Dobbs, former Tennessee quarterback, get his first NFL action in a non-preseason way this week. And for that matter, what's this deal with the Jacksonville Jaguars? They say they're going to play their starters. I'll give you a few insights on that. And when we return, the name of the program, it is Tri-Cities Sports Now.